Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us on another great property investment webinar. And today's webinar is no different. It's going to be equally as exciting as all the previous webinars. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, you have missed quite a lot, but you haven't missed out because everything has been recorded and it is available for your disposal. So we will be posting in the comment section. We will be posting a link where you can go and watch previous recordings about property investment webinars that I've hosted with different guests about different projects. And don't think that you've missed out entirely on those projects if you haven't attended it. You will most probably still be able to find a hidden gem in one of those property investments. But the big purpose behind this property investment webinars is not just to be educational. Obviously, it's a tool that we would like to provide our clients to give a bit of knowledge about property investment, talk about different property opportunities. I mean, we can talk about property investment for hours and hours, but at the end of the day, what we do different is we like to offer you an opportunity at the end of each webinar so that you can actually take something away from it, apart from the knowledge that you've learned, apart from the information that you gathered. So we know that there is always quite a mixed audience, and I see there are still people coming on to the webinar as we talk. So we are very, very grateful for everybody that has shown interest into this property investment webinar. It just goes to show that there is a hunger for people still looking at ways to get into property investment, people looking at opportunities, people that are unsure. So for a lot of people that's on this webinar tonight that has brought a property, has bought a property before, thank you very much for looking at this as another possible opportunity. For those of you on the webinar as first-time property investors, you will, I think, really appreciate the information that we're going to share tonight as well, because it is all about gaining knowledge. You know, you can't, this is a big investment. Any property that you're buying is a big investment.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into that. I have asked Tiri Magubulela from
Wow.
Central
Hey,
Developers. Have I said it correctly?
You did so well. You
Excellent.
did so well, Sean.
Okay. So I've invited Tiri over. She also works for Central Developments
Yes.
on different projects that you're actually involved in.
That's
But the reason why I've invited Tiri to tonight's webinar is because she has finally bought her first property investment.
I have.
Excellent. Well done.
Yes. Got our foot in the door.
Excellent. And Tiri, where did you buy your first property investment?
I actually bought at Oxford in Montana.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
So also one of Central Development's
Yes.
previous rental projects, and we are going to discuss. I'm gonna share with you guys right at the end of the webinar, when we discuss the opportunity briefly, why we are referring to this as the rental property investment market and the benefits that you're actually getting from it. What was the biggest benefit for you buying at Oxford Heights?
Sure. It's the long term. It's the long term part of it. It's part of my retirement plan. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Have you bought it with a tenant in place?
Yes, I did. I did.
That's what we want to hear.
Zero stresses. So it was
That's
a
it.
very smooth process. And that's what you get when you buy with Central Developments.
Yeah,
Peace
so
of mind.
that's it.
Yes.
So there's obviously a lot of different ways that you're going to be able to buy property, existing property, off plan, something that has recently been built, tenanted. You know, there's a lot of different schemes out there.
Mhm.
But the most important thing is, who are you buying from? Have they got a good track history? Are they reputable? And I mean, I've seen many clients coming back year after year at the new opportunities,
Yeah.
because we are launching from Central Development side so many new opportunities every year that it just gives investors such a great platform. They don't have to go look far and wide. They know who to back at the end
Kind
of
of
the day.
like a one-stop shop. Like if you're with us, then you're with us for forever.
That's
for a long time. Yeah.
Because Central doesn't only sell to you and leave you. And
No, you
No.
become part of the family.
Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't noticed, this webinar is sponsored by Central Developments Property Group and the Lemon Tree Apartments Estate in Pretoria East. And I can tell you that I've bought one of my recent investments or latest investments was at Lemon Tree.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Nice one, Shaw.
Yeah. So I've extended my property portfolio, also bought it with a tenant in place already,
Yes.
receiving a great rental income. I'm almost on a break even already
Wow.
as I'm standing now.
And that's within a couple of months, huh?
That's within a couple of months.
Look at that.
You know, and
at
I've
that.
already received, my property has already grown in value. I think I've already made about 50,000-60,000 Rand on the property just
Wow.
because I bought in the earlier phase of the development.
Wow.
And,
That's incredible.
you know, and the capital growth of the development has already seen, but obviously I don't want to flip the property, you know, it's part of my pension plan. And we're going to talk about all of those sort of things throughout the webinar. We're going to talk a bit about capital growth.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about flipping property. What's the perception around it? Why, you know, is the perception actually what you think it is? Is it what it is in the market? And we are going to talk about a few things, but ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to keep you awake for too long. It's only going to be about half an hour. Tiri and I are going to have a lucky conversation. We are going to run through a couple of topics, and the purpose of this is to give you guys a bit of a better background. So you're welcome to post us a few questions if you want to in the Q&A section. We are not going to attend to the questions throughout the webinar, but I will allow for some time after the webinar where we can look at a few questions from our audience. If there is any, maybe we've done such a good job that we've answered all of the questions, you know, throughout the webinar. But let's get started, Sidi.
All right. So, Shaw, the point of discussion for this evening is why do people invest in property? What are the main benefits for investors when they invest in property? And lastly, why choose Central Developments, you know, to buy investment property?
Yeah. So
All
there's a lot of things that we could discuss, but we want to focus on this.
Yes.
And you know, we're on the 1st of December right now. So maybe you and I can look at a follow-up episode maybe in the new year, and we can extend this a bit
Why not?
and
Yes, definitely.
you know, discuss it even a bit further. But let's then look into it.
All right. So, seeing as though I'm a first-time investor and you have an immense amount of experience, could you help us, you know, in telling us, or rather delving into why you think people invest in property? You know, for one, we do know that it's an additional source of income. Can you tell us a little more about that?
So I think when people want to invest, when individuals are looking at, I've got money, or I want to use other people's money to start an investment journey, then there are always the basic things that are constantly being thrown towards investors. And those are things like cryptocurrencies, the share market.
Yeah.
You get people phoning you on a daily basis, want to sell you investment options and things like that in a very volatile market, which you have no control over.
Yeah.
And the big thing that is the difference between a property investment and any other sort of investment is the main thing that you have to use your own money to do any other sort of investment other than property.
Okay. You're going to have to tell us a little bit more about that. Using other people's money?
Yes.
Yes.
So typically what we are saying is that, let's take an example, for instance. So let's say somebody phones you and say, Tidi, I've got a great investment opportunity for you here. You know, I can take your money and I can put it onto this sort of share account or this cryptocurrency that's going to yield you 30% in the next 18 months and all those type of things. You know, are you interested in investing? And then you tell him, no, that sounds excellent. Who doesn't want to make 30% in 12 months on an investment? You know, it sounds awesome. Then he says, great, can I sign you up? How much do you want to invest? 1 million, 2, 5 million? You say, well, I don't have that sort of cash.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where the concept comes in about other people's money, using other people's money. So the bank is not going to finance you, except if your financier is your father or your friend or somebody that loves you very much that says, Tidi, here's 1 million Rand, go and invest it into whatever you would like.
They have to really love me.
So the banks are not going to do that. The banks are not going to say, here's 1 million Rand, go and invest it on whatever, good luck. Just, you know, so they want to invest in something tangible. The same as you want to invest in something tangible. So the banks are your financier when it comes to property.
Mm.
It gives everybody the opportunity to have that way of investing in property by using other people's money, i.e. the banks.
Mm.
So we've got a great relationship with all of the major banks, which are able to look at every individual, the individual profile, credit scoring, affordability, disposable income, all of those things that you need to do when you are lending somebody money. You want to make sure that that person is capable of paying that money back, but
Yes.
effectively the bank will be able to lend you that money in order to buy your investment. So you can effectively borrow 100% from the bank. And in certain cases, even if you're a first-time property buyer, buying a property for the very first time, the banks will even consider doing financing to a higher rate, 105%, to
Wow.
potentially assist you if there are transfer fees or other costs payable.
Yeah.
That is if you're a first-time home buyer. So if you don't know that, this might be something that you can keep in mind. If you want to try and get your foot into the door, there is actually ways that the bank will assist you with a higher lending rate as well.
That's very
But
interesting.
the great news is obviously that property that you're buying from a developer is the property that you actually want to buy because it's all costs included.
Yes.
The price you see is the price you pay. There's no hidden costs.
Mm-mm.
Even if you finance it, even if you buy it cash, that is what you are looking at. So, and I've read an article in the Business Tech just yesterday
Okay.
that more and more people are now tending to go towards security estates, buying investment
Yes.
property, and even their primary residential property, specifically for the fact that you don't have to pay those transfer fees. So if you just look at it, and I haven't done the calculation recently because I don't like spending money towards something that I'm not seeing a return on.
Mm.
So I always try and use maximum of the bank's money and buy something new and off plan. So if you buy a property for about R1 million, you're going to be looking at transfer duty and registration costs and legal fees up to about 60,000 Rand. So that's 60,000 Rand that you need to have available in your savings account or wherever, or make a plan, somebody lending it to you
Mm.
if you are buying this property on a second-hand basis.
Yeah.
And not off plan or brand new or from a developer,
Mm.
those type of things. So coming back a bit to your question, why do people invest in property, is basically because it is an asset.
Yeah.
They can use other people's money to finance that investment. I'm not going to go into the more finer details about strategic investing in a couple of years. Property number one, you can leverage the equity
can
that
use
you've
that
got
for
in
our
the
next episode.
next episode next year when everybody is fresh
Yeah.
after holiday and all those type of things. So definitely other people's money, leaving a legacy for your loved ones,
Definitely.
you know. And I'm sure, I mean, what was your main driver starting your first property?
I mean, for one, definitely that you always want to leave a legacy, and also for your retirement, you know, you don't want to have to now worry about what money is going to come in once, you know, you are retired and all. Not just depending on your what you call your
That constant source
Yeah.
of income that you're going to be getting. But Sidi, you're way too young to think about retirement. Hey,
It's
why?
never too late. It's never too early to start planning your retirement.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. And a lot of people don't realize it. You know, I've recently read an article that 50% of South Africa's population is actually unable to retire
Oh,
in the
wow,
same way that they are living currently.
wow,
And that
that's
figure is
huge.
growing. And that's just on a peer basis. That, you know, that is, if you're looking at figures about retirement and people being able to retire with peace of mind and, you know, having a better life when they retire than what they're going to have now and all those type of things, that percentage is extremely low. It's less
Yeah.
than 10%, you know,
Sure.
of people that are in the ability to retire financially free.
So start planning for your retirement, guys. The sooner the better.
And how better is property to do that? Why? Because you can actually build that portfolio. So if your plan, which I hope it is to acquire a property maybe one property every 18 to 24 months while you're still so young, you can stretch that a bit.
Yeah,
The older you are getting, the more fierce you need to start investing to build up that portfolio, because evidently you would probably like to have, let's call it 5 to 8 properties, which is not unachievable at all.
mm-mm,
But if you are aiming to have 5 to 8 properties by the time that you are 65, paid off, and those 5 to 6 properties are worth 10 million rand in asset value, for argument's sake. The younger you
Rand.
start, the more it could be.
yeah,
Could be looking at 15 plus million
Yeah.
rand, you know. So if you've got that asset base and you've got 150,000 rand a month rental income by that time
yeah,
per month, you've paid off all of your properties. You just need to pay the necessary expenses, but you're getting a great income because now you're not working anymore. So whatever other sort of pension provision you've made
Yeah.
is a bonus. But you've got an asset base of 10, 15 million rand,
wow.
a good income, and you've got, that's your legacy, that's your financial
I
freedom.
was just about to say, you just covered the financial freedom aspect of it.
You know what?
There it is.
So they effectively, and the thing that everybody needs to realize is that property investment, all this that we're saying now sounds great. Oh, that 10, 15 million rand's beautiful, 150,000, but you need to start as early as you can, because it is a long-term thing. You need to invest in property. You need to have patience. You need to speak to the professionals. You need to speak to strategists. You need to change your strategy. Don't always just think that, oh, I need to buy a property and I'm going to continue the same strategy. Property is going to start working for you. Property number 1 is going to help you acquire property number 3 one day.
That's 100%.
Property number 2 is going to help you acquire property number 4 one day. Not 2 to 3 and 3 to 4.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. Don't worry. Okay. So anything else from your side that you believe
I
people should
was
think?
actually just about to say, if you didn't take anything from this webinar, take the fact that you should start investing in your retirement as soon as possible. The sooner you start, the better.
Definitely.
And the way you do it is through buying property.
That's it. You know, if you don't like the word retirement, I don't think there's anybody that does. But if you
It's a
don't
bit
like
scary.
it's a bit scary,
It's a
eh?
bit scary, especially
Think
for a
about
young person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to think about it. You want to use your money, it's yours, you know. You
Yeah.
want to say, but property at least is something fun.
Yeah,
Something fun to do while you're just preparing that for your retirement. You know.
that's true.
So you can't get to property number 2 if you don't start with property number 1.
Got you.
So remember that.
So tell me something, as an investor yourself, what are the benefits of buying investment property, or rather investing in property?
So there's a lot of benefits. The one benefit, and that's part of being a bit more strategic, and I'll share a quick secret as an example of what my way of thinking was when I started with my second property. My first property, I didn't think about those things. I didn't even have kids at the time. It was about 10 years ago. So when I started with my first investment property, it was my plan to build a portfolio. How I was going to get to number 2, I was still unsure of at that time. Time basically guided me to get from number 1 to 2. And then it just became actually easier. And believe it or not, from a financing point of view of the banks, it actually also becomes a bit easier, because if the banks see how well you are managing your property investments and that you are getting that rental income and you are paying your expenses, you're keeping a good credit record. And remember that property is also growing in value. So what you bought for 700,000 Rand a couple of years ago, 3 years down the line, it's going to be worth 850,000 Rand maybe, and the bank is going to see that capital growth. But not only that, it's grown in value with 150,000, and you've paid off 100,000 in capital value or whatever. So the property, you've got an equities in there of about 250,000 Rand. So it becomes easier when you get to property number 2, 3, and 4 and building it. And you can also take your rental income with your rental agreement in place and all those type of things, and that will be your supporting documentation, your supporting income for the bank to finance your second property.
Okay.
There are some of the banks out there that actually has packages for investors who is on property number 3 and going higher, where they already take future income into consideration. You know, so the more property assets you've got, the easier it actually becomes, believe it or not.
Yeah, because I mean, I wanted to ask you, so are you saying that the more properties you acquire as you go along, the more lenient the banks are to
Yes,
you?
100%.
Wow, that's
So it's
incredible.
like your credit scoring. If you look,
Yeah,
I always say, the next important thing to your spouse is your credit scoring. You need to protect that like nobody's business.
yeah,
So
could it be more?
yeah, so at the end of the day, the banks look at that as well. How well are you managing your asset base?
Okay,
And because it's growing in value and you are managing that well, they are more lenient to give you finance for another property. Obviously, you need to have the disposable income. You can't necessarily be on the same salary as you were 5 years ago or the same income as you were 5 years ago, but your expenses have grown. It's going to mean that your disposable income is becoming less, and you might be required to put down a bit of a deposit, to bring that
Sure.
that difference a bit down. But benefits, I think the two that we want to discuss here is the capital growth
Mhm.
value of it, and it's going to be the buy-to-let element of it. So if we can quickly just stand still on the capital growth and of properties and flipping, that is what I referred to a bit earlier, that investors like myself did, buying in the earlier stages. So from a developer, I want all costs included. I want to leverage as much as possible of the bank's money in order to buy this investment.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I try and get in as early as possible into the development.
Okay.
All right. So if I have the intention to potentially flip the property,
Mhm.
or if I want to buy something of a greater value, but I need somebody to maybe partner with me in this property, because joint purchases, ladies and gentlemen, is not uncommon.
Mm.
It's not uncommon
Yeah.
at all. If you have somebody that you trust very well and you want to get your foot into the door, but increase your disposable income, consider buying with somebody to start learning the process,
100%.
get into the game, learn it.
Sorry, before you move any further, Shah, could you just elaborate on flipping? Because I'm sure there's quite a few people watching out there who don't know what flipping is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think and I'm sure that the participants that are on this webinar now have heard the term flipping many times.
Okay.
Whether everybody understands what it means is a different story, because a lot of property webinars that speaks about flipping will mainly focus about buying a property that's been run down a bit or that needs a bit of maintenance, something that you can buy at least 20% below market value, that you can spend a little bit of money on, put a tenant in there. So it has to be in an area where the rental demand is also high. It doesn't help you to buy something below market value, but rental market is also very low and slow. There's a bit of a calculation there that you need to take into consideration. And I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when people are talking about flipping. Buy something, renovate, flip it for profit. Whatever that time frame is going to be dependent. Is it 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year? Obviously, the longer you keep on holding on to this property, it's going to eat into your potential profits because of the holding costs that you need to take into consideration. But the one thing that they don't always tell you up front, because everything sounds great. Let's negotiate a property and buy for 600,000 in a good area. We're going to spend about 100,000 rand on the property. That's point number one. You need money to spend it.
Yeah.
You can do that through angel investors, or you can do that through various methods, or if you've got a bit of cash flow, you can do that with the renovation, etc. But first and foremost, buying that property, it's not a brand new property, so you need to budget for whatever transfer costs you're going to have, the legal fees, the registration costs, etc. You must budget for that. Okay, that's going to be part of your calculation.
Okay.
Then the maintenance costs. How much work is there that needs to be done? Do you need to replace kitchens? Do you need to retile? Do you need to do landscaping, plumbing, electrical, or what is the state of that property? Obviously, you do a proper due diligence in the beginning to see what this is going to run you out of pocket. And then thirdly, you want to get a buyer lined up within a reasonable time at the price that you are pitching for, so that you can make a bit of profit. But for that sort of flipping to take place, you need to have a bit of knowledge, experience. You need to have a team. you need to know who you are going to go to in order to do your plumbing and your landscaping and your construction and your maintenance and your renovations and all those type of things. Have you got that team set up? Who's going to do your transfer? You know,
Yeah.
all of those type of things. It takes a lot more knowledge.
Sounds like so much admin as well.
You know, if you do it right, it's a nice hobby. You know, it's a nice hobby. But if you want to capitalize on straightforward flipping, capital growth, and let's have a look at the next slide, because I think they've given us a bit of an example there as well. Okay, we're going to come back to this one. Let's go to the next one. I want to show you an actual thing when we talk about the flipping side of it. So here, the most common real estate investment strategies, as we talk about the capital growth side of it, because remember, as we said in the beginning, when you're talking about property investment as a source of investment, there's two income streams eventually. The one you're going to see on a monthly basis, that's your monthly return on investment.
Okay.
That is normally where they will tell you, right, so taking your income into consideration with all of your expenses, your monthly net rental return is going to be 8% for argument's sake. All right. So that's your 1% that you work at.
All right.
The other percentage you're going to be looking at is your capital growth. So while a lot of investors and property enthusiasts don't really see this as a lot of value, is because they cannot see that at the end of the month. They cannot see it in a tangible way. They cannot, you know, they cannot monitor that properly. But that, it's a better projection if you decide to buy a property for flipping purposes.
Okay.
So long term, the capital growth does not really make that much of a difference, because your intention is the rental income one day, the positive cash flow, when you don't have a shortfall anymore, when you retire and you've got that paid off property, it's part of your portfolio. That is the more important thing. If you are flipping a property, you're going to do a bit more homework on the side of growth.
Okay.
Getting the property at a lower price. So typically, the example here is when you buy a property, when a development is launching, or the phase one, or whatever the case might be, as early as they start selling and you get your foot into the door. For a simple example, and this is actual figures. So phase one selling price 875. Now you've got a last phase selling price for the same sort of unit. So let's call it, it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, or a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom sort of apartment that you've got, that you bought for 875 in phase one, and the development might have 4 selling phases.
Okay.
So with each selling phase, there is a price increase, whether it is a percentage related increase or whether it is a fixed amount increase, there is going to be increases. So if the increase amounts to 100,000 Rand over the 4 phases, it means that you've only had a 25,000 Rand per phase escalation about. Well, you're going from phase 2, 3 to 4. So we're talking about a 33%, increase, or 33,000%. 30, don't even correct.
Massive. Yeah, no.
So odd 33,000, or let's call it odd 30,000 Rand increase that you've got per phase. Now that doesn't sound a lot. So if you buy in phase one now, and 3 months later, phase 2 only opens up, and another 3 months later, phase 3 opens up in the last phase. And let's say this development sells out within 12 to 15 months, because it's normally not a development with 50 units, there's a number of units, so it takes a bit of time, but that is to your benefit. So the longer the estate actually takes a bit to sell out, you are capitalizing on the rental income, you're buying this, but your intention is to flip it. So the longer it takes actually, but the better your capital investment is growing. And when the developer is selling the last phase and they're on their last units, you can effectively sell at the same price than what they are selling in phase 4, because that is the new market related price.
Wow. Can you imagine 100,000 Rand in this example now within, let's say, what, 15 months?
15 months, probably maximum. Maximum.
That's incredible.
And
that's incredible.
You could have potentially spent very little. I almost wanted to say nothing, but we're not always that lucky. But if you do that calculations effectively, let's say you've leveraged the bank's money to the fullest, 100% bond.
Okay.
With your rental income and your expenses that you had, maybe you started off with a shortfall of, let's call it 1,000 Rand. If you started off with a shortfall in year 1 of 1,000 Rand, and let's say it's for the duration that you have, that you want to keep this property because you want to flip it effectively. So
Yes.
it's not going to necessarily come down in year 2 and 3 and 4 because you're not going to keep it as long. Rental is not going to increase because that is how the shortfall effectively works on a normal buy to let. So every year your shortfall becomes less, but you intend to keep the property for a longer period. Short-term shortfall. So now, if you had a shortfall for 15 months of 1,000 Rand, it's 15,000 Rand out of your own pocket that you had to pay this investment. This is your, let's call it your premium for this investment.
Okay,
You know, it's your monthly premium.
okay.
It's 1,000 Rand. And then when you sell it and you get 100,000 Rand from that profitable before tax, you're looking at 85,000 Rand that you've effectively made
Even still, that's great.
for
That's
no
great.
money
Yeah,
spent.
no, that's great.
It's for no money
Sign me
spent.
up.
Hey, I'll get you a contract just now, don't worry. All right, so let's go one slide back. So that is the common concept then of property flipping, capital growth. And ladies and gentlemen, as I said, you know, we can discuss these things in a lot more practical manner and a lot more physical calculation and sit down. And when it comes to property investment, the first thing that I always ask my investors when I sit down with them is, what is your strategy? What do you want to achieve with this property? And then the second question is, does it tie in with your long-term strategy, and what is that strategy? So when you are investing in property, you don't only need to have one strategy. You can have multiple strategies.
Oh, okay.
You can have buy to let within your property portfolio. You can have flipping properties and with different timelines. And the one example that I actually wanted to give a bit earlier on my investment journey starting is my property portfolio. I'm not investing, I'm not putting monthly costs down for my children's education one day. Now people is going to think, are you mad? You don't want to send your kids to varsity, or you know what?
Yeah,
I do, but I'm doing it differently. I'm doing it
Okay.
with property.
okay.
And I'm not going to intend selling that property because my kids are small. It's 2.5 and 4.5. They're still babies, you know.
Yeah.
So I've got a long time to go, but my property portfolio is effectively by the time that they reach 18, I've got equity within my property. I've got properties that's either going to be close to be paid off, properties that I haven't leveraged on the equity to buy more property necessarily, but I'm going to have a good couple of 100,000 Rand between my couple of properties because I've started earlier. I've built up my portfolio because it's long term. So in 15 years from now, when my first child is going to varsity, I can choose which one of the properties I want to take out 100,000 Rand for years, one's tuition, books, and whatever the case might be. I don't have to take out all of the money right now for the whole 4 years or 5 years or how many. I hope he doesn't want to go study for 10 years, but I'm sponsoring the first 4, maximum 5 years. So, but that is what my property portfolio is going to do for me. Instead of me having to open up a sort of bursary investment that I have to start paying 1,000 Rand for this year every month, next year that goes up to 1,500, and next year it goes up to 2,000 because education is becoming expensive and everything is going through the roof. So I need to keep in line. If I want to send them to varsity in 15 years from now, what is my education going to cost me for them then? What is it costing now? What it's going to be in 15 years? Property, I can leverage and play around with it, but it's a timing, it's a waiting game. Don't be in a hurry. Your first focus needs to get your foot into the door, buy your first investment, then grow it to the second, third, and then you can start playing around with all those type of things.
Okay.
So that is my strategy, part of my strategy for my kids' education one day, and then it's going to serve my retirement with that nice
I
income
think I
and all
need to
that stuff.
adopt your strategy. You need to tell me more about it.
I'm
after
going to
this.
teach you. I'm going to teach you. Stick with me, I'll make you famous, as they say. All right. Okay, so buy-to-let cash flow properties, I think we've covered that. It is basically your monthly net rental return. We spoke about the capital growth, given it a bit of an example. So most common thing for investors, it's normally either the buy-to-let, more short-term, manage those properties. And I think one of the big pitfalls that prevents investors to start is the risk associated with property investment, the unknown, the
Yeah.
uncertainty, not being knowledgeable enough, but always procrastinating. So they think, okay, now I want to look at a bunch of these webinars and I want to get information. I want to talk to a bunch of people. Now, next year I'll look at buying my first property. The best time to buy a property was yesterday. Because tomorrow it's not going to be cheaper necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've run through this. We can then carry on. So, Tidi, you work for Central Developments as well. Tell me a bit. Why do we choose Central Developments?
Well, for one, we are a reputable developer. We've been in the business for a number of years, and we are number one. We are the number one property developer in Gauteng. So you do have peace of mind knowing that we are very reputable, and we also make quality products as well. And what's nice is that we also give you tenanted units. So if you want to buy for investment purposes, then all of our units are always fully tenanted.
They've got a very good track record, and
Yeah.
and that's not just hearsay, that is factual. You can go and have a look at that on a more statistical basis. It's out there, it's nothing to hide. So being a reputable developer, or buying from a reputable developer, probably some of your most important elements. You can buy from anybody that gives you sends you an email and tells you about this magnificent investment, cash flow positive from day one, all those type of things. But have a look into the finer T's and C's. Normally that happens when you get free levies for the first year or free management for the first year, whatever the case may be. There will always be a bit of a shortfall when you start your investment journey and you're buying the right property. Especially if it's a new property, you can't, if everybody could buy a property for 900,000 Rand and be cash flow positive from day one with no strings attached, everybody would.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's an easy calculation. But a quality product, definitely with Central Developments track record of the past 25 years in the property industry, doing various sorts of property developments, not only security estates, not only apartments, but also in the retirement village space as well.
100%.
Houses, storage,
The works.
everything. If you go onto Central Developments website and you go and look at the range that they've got there and what they are currently busy with versus historic, that is why TV is saying we are the number one in Gauteng with a wide range. It's not only about quantity, it's about
Yes.
range.
Yes.
Different differentiation, And as a property investor, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you another tip. Do not, when you start your property investment journey, do not only fixate and focus on one. Don't think in your mind that a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom is the only way to invest. It's the only thing, or a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. You need to mix up your portfolio. So for the first 2 or 3 properties, they can be very similar. But when you start growing that portfolio, divide your risk a bit in terms of area. Properties on the ground floor, go for properties on the upper floor, go for 1-bedrooms, go for 2-bedrooms, whatever you can do to differentiate your property portfolio. You want to do that. You do not want to end up with 10 properties in your property portfolio, all 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, or 2-bed, 1-bath, all apartments, all in Pretoria.
I mean, people have different needs at the end of the day as well.
Exactly.
If you want to look at renting all of your properties out, people have different needs. Some want to rent houses, others apartments, others retirement. So you definitely have to have a range. I agree with that.
And the area is very important. It always goes back and it will always land. If you're tired of hearing it, location, location, location.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
You can never tire of that, because if you're a savvy property buyer, your own property investment, you need to think about it a bit further in terms of the locality. What is the area doing? How's the area growing? How's it evolving? Am I going to get a good capital growth? If you don't care about the capital growth, are you assured to have good tenants the whole time? Is the demand going to be there? Supply and demand is what makes the wheel spin and go around at the end of the day. So VIP access, another important thing to our new and upcoming developments. If nothing, go and register with Central Developments. At least all of our participants here who's registered for the webinar will effectively be on the database for future communication. You can unsubscribe and opt out anytime you want to. but you have done yourself a great big favor. You've got VIP access from now going forward to new developments, upcoming opportunities, apart from the one that we've got now for Lemon Tree.
Yes.
Oxford Heights, I think there's still great opportunities available as well where you've bought. And then the fully tenanted investment options are probably one of the big benefits that we have with Lemon Tree specifically. So with Lemon Tree, and we can talk about that slightly as well after into the next slide, but we vet all of your tenants, we manage all of your tenants, those services are available. So that is effectively a one-stop shop, like you said, you know, in the beginning, you mentioned a one-stop shop, and it is exactly that. So if you could buy a fully tenanted unit from a reputable developer with a contract in place, already vetted, approved, all those type of things, we help you with in-house finance options through all of the major banks. You don't have to go and spend time in the queues and on the phone, and we can manage your tenant for you further after registration. What did you need to do?
If that is not peace of mind, I don't know what is.
That's now luxury on your doorstep. Forget that S-Class Mercedes.
Yeah.
First, go for this option. Okay, so that is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why you choose Central Developments as a property investor. And then to end off, basically going on for our webinar, we would like to encourage everybody to click on the link that has been posted in the chat box. Click on it and you see, I don't know how you do, click here, type of thing.
That's what they do.
But in the Q&A section, ladies and gentlemen, go and click on that link, fill in the quick form, send your inquiry through, and the team will know that you would like to receive more information about the offer at Lemon Tree. They have granted us a great promotion for the webinar only, that if you inquire for a Lemon Tree apartment, whether it is buying for yourself or if you are buying it for an investment, it's your first investment, great. If it's one to add into your portfolio, even better. But they have got a great promotion for the participants of the webinar, up to a 20,000 Rand investor assistance.
That's incredible.
So
for just watching the webinar.
For just watching the webinar. Okay. So Sidi, from my side, I think you've been great. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Charles. It's been great.
Awesome.
See you in the next episode.
We'll see you in the next episode. So ladies and gentlemen, happy investing. Travel safe wherever you're going to go for the December holidays. If you are working, thank you very much for contributing and making our lives maybe easier where we're going to be seeing you in the shops. But please travel safe. Have a great Christmas. And thank you for attending.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.